Installing Yellowfin is relatively simple if you've made a few preparations before you begin the process. Here I'm going to show you installing Yellowfin on either a Mac or a Linux type system, and we're going to start with just the GUI over here. Now, the few things you want to make sure you've determined before you start a Yellowfin installation are: 1, what directory are you going to install Yellowfin into? 2, where is your license file? In order to run Yellowfin, you're going to need a license file from Yellowfin that provides a key that allows the software to run. And finally, what database are you going to install Yellowfin into to use as its configuration storage? Now, Yellowfin comes with a demonstration configuration database, which is essentially file-based in nature. It's not recommended for production deployments, but you can use it if you don't have another one available and just want to try the product out. First of all, if you're on a Mac and you have Java 8 installed, you can just double-click on the jar. When you do, after waiting for a couple of seconds, you'll notice a GUI pops up and prompts you for what language you want to install in. You can continue the installation process from there, and it's fairly self-explanatory. If you're on a Linux or Unix system, it's still pretty simple. You'll just have to use a command line interface in order to put your installation instructions in. So in this case, you would say something like Java -jar Yellowfin to let the Java system know you're going to run this jar file. And in my case, because I have a GUI installed and it would like to default to giving me that presentation, I'm going to let it know I actually want to start on the command line. Once it starts up, I'm going to let it know I'll be installing this into the applications directory, and I'm going to call this Yellowfin demo install. And here, this is going to be in my desktop directory. And I'm going to have another look at this license just to make sure I have the right name. License Blacklight Solutions dash development dash Kennedy. Could we have made it any more complicated? I'm not sure. Okay, and once we have the license file typed out, it's not found because the license name is too complicated. We're just going to shorten the name real quick. Oh dear. Okay, license.lic. Continue. No, let's not. Let's go ahead and specify a license. And this time, we'll specify that license as there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and run mine on 8083 because I already have something running on 8080. But you could run this on the standard web port of 80, or after you install a security certificate for SSL, HTTPS type transactions, you could run it on 443. Now I'm going to enter the default amount of memory, and in my case I am going to use number 4, that example file-based database, but you see that you could use DB2, CacheDB, Ingress, SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, PostgreSQL, Postgres, Sybase, all to run your Yellowfin instance. And that essentially is the database that it stores the user information and the reports you develop and all that into, so that when you start Yellowfin up, it can read that and return to its prior state. It also provides a backup strategy, but more on that in another video. So I'm going to do this. I am going to install the tutorial content, which I almost always recommend. I am going to install the GeoPack, US zip codes, and we're off. All right, now the Yellowfin server's been installed. So we're going to go to that directory. And what you see is we have essentially all these artifacts from Yellowfin, including an installation log, and we want to get into that app server directory. And while we're in there, there's a bin directory for scripts that will run, and I'm going to run startup.sh, and that's going to start the Yellowfin server. And just for my sake, I like to run tail -f logs and then look at the Catalina.out log as the server's starting up, so I can just watch it and the output that it puts out as it's starting up for the first time. While that's happening, I'll also say that if you want to see more about some of this information, you can see that Yellowfin has a pretty detailed wiki page on developing a custom installer, which allows you to, for example, make for a silent installer, one that's just pre-configured where you hit one button and it just uses all the configuration options you've set up in order to install Yellowfin. Now, we ran this on port 8083, so I'm just going to go to my local host here. And once this actually says it's started up, which it hasn't yet, I can go ahead and hit port 8083. And it's waiting. And there it is. This is our new install of Yellowfin. New installs of Yellowfin have a specific login, admin@yellowfin.com.au with test as the password. Of course, you should change that if you're actually going to be serving any content. And I just have a development license, so I get this not for resale notification, and I'll get that watermark on my graphs after a couple of hours of playing around with Yellowfin. And it's starting up for the first time, just making sure everything's coming up nice. And there it is. We've done a full install of Yellowfin and started the server locally.